Hello, folks, and welcome to another episode of Talk Bigfoot. On this occasion, I'm your host, Jim Bradley, President of the IBRO. And on tonight's episode, we're going to be talking to Chris Dawson, uh, who is now head of media in the IBRO, who looks after all the advertising stuff and the technical whiz kid, as we say, was also the founder of the IBRO. And we're going to have a quick hour chat with him about all his sightings, his equipment, some of the research, and other bits and pieces that we want to do. So, without any further ado, uh, Chris Dawson, welcome to the show.
Hey Jim, how's things?
Not too bad, not too bad. So, Chris, yeah, we'll get started. I just want to get an idea of how exactly did you get into the research into, as they say, hairy creatures in Ireland, and abroad. So just to get an idea of, tell the folks how you started off, maybe when you from the beginning, if you can.
Yeah, well, it was always a thing that I was interested in, even from a very young age. I was always sort of into the strange and the unknown. I did probably get a bit deeper into UFOs for a lot of years, before I actually, found my way back towards Bigfoot. But um, it was always a thing that I was interested in, as I say, from a very early age. Back in those days in the 70s and 80s before the internet, every book you can imagine going, I had the book, I watched every documentary that came on TV. Obviously, back then, there were even few and far between then than what they are now. We only had a handful of channels, I suppose, back in those days. Um, and obviously any show that would have come on about the Loch Ness Monster or about Sasquatch or whatever, I'd have been watching it. I probably had it taped and kept it on the VHS tape. But
Yeah,
that all stemmed from there, and obviously that all went. There was always that interest there, and right through my life. And I've only really been researching, to be honest with you, the past few years. Because simple reason being is because I never believed for 1 minute that they actually would be in Ireland. Um, I always passed it aside. I always sort of laughed it off. And I suppose as time went on, um, I started to realise, maybe there is something going on here. And I sort of looked into the history of the woodwose and the green man, the grey man, and the puka, and all these different things that have been reported, and not just in Ireland, but all over the British Isles and right across Europe. And um, dug a little bit deeper into that, and still not really paying attention till Ireland as much as what I should have been. But I was always still passing the buck, and saying that that's definitely not the case. There's no Bigfoot in Ireland. This went on for a long, long time. But eventually, I think I seen a photograph that was taken maybe up around the Antrim Lane somewhere. I'm not too sure what actually kicked it off, to be honest, Jim, but there was something along those lines that intrigued me, and maybe along with a couple of reports in that same area. And I said, right, well, I'm going to have to start, you know, looking more deeply into this. And obviously, uh, whenever I heard a report in my own area in August 2017, which is only just over 3 years ago, that's when things really kicked in. And obviously, within a few months, that led to the formation of the ABRO. But uh, that was the one, even at that point there, Jim, I have to say, even at that point, I was still passing the buck. Um, I still didn't believe they were here, and I says to myself, well, how can anybody have seen? I'm not going to mention the area exactly, but it's in North Armagh. So I thought, how on earth has somebody seen a Bigfoot in North Armagh? You know, even
yeah,
if they are in Ireland, North Armagh doesn't have the huge expanses of forest the way that parts of Ireland do out west and up the northeast, and and places like that, So I said to myself, yeah, no, no, I just completely wrote it off,
Yeah.
But I said to myself, I'm going to have to um, look into this, even though I have no intentions of believing the story. I said I'm going to have to look into it, and um, obviously I knew that the only way to get activity, to get any sort of response, is at night time, and that's what I done. Obviously I was out in my area quite a lot during the day too, but I sort of, obviously, whenever this sort of kicked in August 17, a couple of months after that, I suppose October, November to 2017, when I sort of started really looking into the areas around here. Um, Obviously, it was dark at tea time. In Ireland here, we it's very what's the word? It's kind of extreme. A lot of parts of the world, it gets light in the morning and dark at night, roughly at the same time throughout the year. But in Ireland, in the summertime, we've got an extreme of like a broad daylight from 3:30 in the morning till 11 o'clock at night until the midwinter, where it's not light until 9 o'clock in the morning and it's dark again at 3:45 in the afternoon. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
did that does I have to say that does suit a squatcher, because I could finish work here at 5 o'clock and it's black dark and go straight out to my local area at 5 o'clock in the evening and spend a few hours there in the evening and it's black dark. So
Yeah.
that's exactly what I done, and I went out, and obviously things took a little bit of time before they got moving, and it was even a good while before I even found my first print. But uh, I think that I have to say the first time probably that I actually got some sort of convincing evidence for myself was February 2018. And it had taken all that time, obviously, to get to that point.
Yeah.
But I was, I'd actually been in the area for, as I say, for a few hours. Um, I didn't have much in the way of equipment there. I had probably one of those wee cheap headlights that you would lift in Tesco's or whatever, or Walmart in the States in their case. One of those little cheap things at a couple of pound, and I had a small flashlight, and that was me. And I think the light on my phone, that was me. And not very safe, I suppose, to be in those sorts of areas with very little lighting at that time of year, especially bogland, was quite dangerous. So I was actually I'd been there for a few hours, and I was doing a bit of knocking and calling and stuff like that, as you do, and there was nothing. And I headed down the main trail, and I got down to roughly where the trail actually splits in two. And this is still, I suppose, about a quarter of a mile from where I had the car parked. And I said I'll stop off here before I head down the final furrow towards the car. I'll stop off here. Yeah, so I got down to this part where the trail actually splits in half and heads off a different direction. And I said I'll stop off here for a little while, and I took out a cigarette, as you do. And just as I done that, um, I heard what I thought was talking on my right hand side. Uh, Trying to explain that, what actually I heard is impossible. I've never heard nothing like it before in my life. Um, I can't even explain what language or what accent it even sounded like, because there's nothing that would describe it.
Yeah.
Literally, as soon as I heard that, and by the way, it sounded like two different voices.
Yeah.
So there was a conversation going on, and literally within a few seconds of hearing that, on my left hand side, I heard a very deep groan. I can probably describe that like a whoa, like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was so loud that actually felt my insides rumbling. You know, and I said to myself, right, okay, fair enough. And I'm one of these people. I'm even skeptical with myself. Um, I try to pass it off and say, oh, you're hearing things, so your mind's playing, you're tired, whatever. You're always trying to use an excuse to pass it off. But I said, right, okay, fair enough. That gets maybe time that I leave. So I started heading down the trail towards the car. And just as I done that, on the left hand side where it heard the deep groan, I started to hear heavy bipedal walking through the water. Now the water in that area at that time of year is about 4 to 5 feet deep in some areas. Averages sort of 4 feet deep, but it can be deeper. At the moment, actually, in the same area, it's about 6 feet deep now with the amount of rain we've had this summer. But at that particular time, it was at least 4 feet deep. And I heard this walking through the water. Now, how would I explain that? It would be, um, at first I thought, was it something swimming? Was it a fox swimming or a badger swimming or whatever? I even thought a deer, and then I realized there's no deer in the area.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like that, Jim. It was like water being pushed. If you have you ever walked through the pool when you're on vacation?
Yeah.
On the children's end of the pool, if you've ever walked through the end of the pool pushing the water, that's exactly how it sounded, like two legs pushing the water.
Yeah.
And that went right to the car, almost right to the car, within literally 100 yards from the car, and it stopped. And I said to myself, thank goodness for that. And whereas as soon as I thought that, I heard like a whiz of air coming through the air, like through the air, and next thing, plunk beside me, a railroad sleeper-sized log landed literally right beside my feet, and that didn't come from the direction of where this guy was walking. It came from the other direction. So one of the other ones who had been talking had thrown it.
Yeah.
In my reckoning, because if the other guy would have threw it, it would have landed on my left hand side. This landed on my right. It would have landed on my left, or it would have hit me, one of the two. This clearly came from the opposite side. So there was more than one. There was, in my belief, there was at least three.
This was in the dark, Chris, wasn't it? This was late at night.
Black dark. This was about 9:30 p.m. It had already been dark for 4 to 5 hours previous to that. This was February time, 2018. So it had been dark from at least 5 o'clock, 5:30 that evening.
Yeah.
I did have a bit of a brief encounter before that, just literally a couple of weeks before that, in the same area, just about a couple of miles away. Which I don't really count it, as a encounter because I wasn't too sure exactly what it was. But there's a canal that runs by the area, and I'm sure you've heard of the old tales of the troll under the bridge.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I thought when it happened. But it was a real wet night. The rain was coming down as if it had never come down before. Up to this canal bridge, and I heard movement underneath it, and I said, I wonder what that is. It sounds a bit big, for a badger or a fox or whatever, or even a deer. This particular canal, the banks, Jim, are extremely steep. I'm not sure whether I've ever had you there before. I must bring you up and show you that sometime.
Yeah.
But the canal banks are very, very steep, and they're probably 30 feet from the top down to the water, and they're literally vertical. So the chances of any big enough animal like a deer getting down there is zero. It'll get down, but it'll not get back up.
Yep.
But I heard movement, and then the next thing I seen like a pair of eyes looking at me. Now these eyes were glowing. They were glowing like a mild green color.
So when you say glowing, Chris, do you mean by themselves or from your headlight?
Oh no, by themselves.
Wow.
And then I said to myself, right, gotta get out of here, because it did spook me, and because I didn't know what it was. I didn't even think about Bigfoot, to be honest. But I started making a beeline for the car right along the tow pad towards the car along the canal, and whatever it was walking on the other side of the canal. I could hear movement walking on the other side of the
Hmm.
canal.
So it was following you out, basically.
Yeah,
Whatever it was.
I followed him right to the car.
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever it was, you know.
Mm. That area in particular, I think you have a couple of stories from there, Chris. It seems to be fairly active.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna be quite honest with you. I would say 70% of the encounters that I've had during research have been in the same area. Um, it just never ceases to amaze, you know. But those two were the earliest indications of anything possibly, from my own belief,
Yeah.
being there, you know. And shortly after that, I think I started finding prints
Yeah.
a lot. I'd found a couple before this now, and I sort of passed them off too, as you do. But I started finding them sort of more regular, sort of at least maybe once a month even, and
Yeah.
uh, that did intrigue me obviously as well. But obviously, I continued in that area. There's another few areas that I do check pretty often, but that was that first one I mentioned was the first real encounter where I said to myself, right, okay, there's a possibility that there actually is some truth in this, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, so obviously, I wanted to go full steam with that area and give it a real good go. And I think it was probably quite a while before anything really happened again to that extent. Um, the rest is sort of 2018, I suppose. With I might research it at least 3 times a week. Um,
Yeah.
I try to get out in the evenings or whatever, and I suppose that does increase your chances. You
Mm.
know,
Yeah.
it's really common sense, I suppose. But the next thing that happened was probably a few months later, and it was around the same time as the actual sighting happened there, the official witness sighting in August 17. This was about a year later in August 2018. And it was actually on the same trail where the witness had his report. And I went round that same trail. I headed up it a little bit, and I heard like what I thought was a whistle, a deep whistle.
Yeah.
I thought it was a bird at the start or whatever, but then it continued a wee bit. So you know, and I didn't recognize it as any bird I know, but it was very deep, you know. But I thought nothing of it. I thought nothing of that. But I headed on round the trail, around the corner. It comes up at a long level with that same canal. This is further down from where that other thing happened, but it's the same canal. And I rounded that corner, and I thought I had heard movement, something, you know, following. And the next thing, I came round the corner, and before I say this, but now actually, I suppose I better tell the listeners about a wee bit about the area. It's all bogland, and for the American guys, it's not swamp. It's pure swamp, and it's just like I suppose parts of Florida, only it's not as warm. But you have all the water and all the trees and stuff are growing under the water, so you have all the big tree trunks and roots and stuff running under the water. And I think even for a woodwice or Irish Bigfoot or whatever the case is, even that can be difficult to navigate. I rounded this corner, I headed up a little bit more, and the walking continued. And the next thing I heard, splash and crash and bang.
Yeah.
So whatever it was following me was absolutely huge, and it's probably they say Bigfoot are smart. I wouldn't disagree with that. I think they're very smart, but they haven't got eyes in their feet, Jim.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah. Yeah.
this guy who was following me has been too busy watching me, and he hasn't been watching where he's walking. And he's went clumbered over some big log under the water, and he's smashed it in half and crashed into the water with a huge splash.
Yeah.
And that was quite clear that that was a big, big animal or a big creature of some sort that went into that water, and of course the following the walking stopped after that, so he probably realized, well, this isn't going to work out maybe, so I better not continue anymore. So that obviously was the second sort of encounter that I said where the evidence started to pile up in my head.
Yeah.
But
that was again at night time, Chris, was it?
No, well, it was but that was August time, so it was late. It was late to like 9:30 p.m. in the evening,
Yeah, yeah.
So this was probably about 7 o'clock in the evening, so it was late. It was daylight. It was broad daylight.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was daylight at that stage, but definitely there's been a few cases which will probably come to eventually here around that exact same trail. There's no doubt that there's definitely something going on along there. Whether they're actually living down that trail somewhere, I don't know. But a lot of things have happened.
Yeah.
Not just to me, but the others on that very same trail.
Yeah. Has there been an incident, Chris, where you can, without question, say that what you saw something, and there was no doubt in your mind? Do you have any of those?
Well, I have to say first of all, before we get to that, that probably along with yourself, Jim. It's funny how your mind works, but I would say I was 100%, maybe even 99.9% convinced that they were here about 6 months after that in February 2019. And was it February? It was February 2019. We were filming for Walking with the WILDMAN, me and yourself.
Yeah.
We had been in the Cooney Mountains and filming down below all day, and there had been snow, a lot of snow, but we had been there all morning, all afternoon. It was getting a bit milder, and the snow had started receding. The snow had completely melted where we were at that stage. And I think you had suggested maybe to go up top before we headed on home, to go up top for a nosy and maybe get a couple of drone shots on top of the mountain or whatever the case was. And I says, aye, right. So I wasn't in no sort of a rush, and neither were you. So up we went and jumped out of the car to admire the view. Black Mountain up there is, I guess, the second highest peak in the Cooney Mountains, so it is pretty high. Jumped out of the car, and I think I lit a cigarette, a little bit of a world of my own, and then you went off for a nosy, and you didn't walk off too far from the car, and you said, "Chris, look at this."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember that. How can I
So
forget?
yeah, so I mean, if anybody's seen Walking with the WILDMAN, you'll see that in that. And I mean, there wasn't one, there was 13 prints, and they were all different shapes and sizes. Well, they weren't different shapes; they were all different sizes. Which would suggest a large family group. One of the sets of prints, which you'll see in Walking with the WILDMAN, was absolutely huge. I think you'd put your boot print beside it, Jim.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest print that I've ever seen. I found a lot of prints in my time, but that is the biggest print that I've ever seen. It was absolutely huge. Of course, there was 4 or 5 of that one print where it actually had stepped forward and stepped back, whatever it was doing. This is right in the very top of the mountain. So whether they were up there the night before that, which is probably the case, up having a nosy around them, that's what they were probably doing. That's what I think, anyway. But I have to say that was not there, even without having a visual, Jim. That was the evidence for me, because of the fact that there were so many found on so many different sizes. If somebody was going to fake that, for a start, nobody knew where we were going. Nobody knew that we were going there. Only me and you, because it was only me and you filming Walking with the WILDMAN at that time.
Yeah.
There was nobody else involved. Ben and Ron weren't over on the scene then. Ben didn't even come on to start helping with Walking with the WILDMAN Part 1 until last August. He came in to help with recreations and stuff. So it was only me and yourself. There is no way on earth that anybody knew we were going there. Other members of the IBRO weren't even told where we were going.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
They knew we were filming, but they didn't know where we were filming because we kept all the locations secret at that time for that reason, to prevent anything like that happening, like a hoax or whatever, you know. But
Yeah,
that was the main, that was, I suppose, the thing that really, set me on track to say, right, and I guess it's only a year and a half ago, to say, right, okay, fair enough, you know, there's definitely something here.
yeah, that was a major turning point, I do have to say. But for the guys that are listening, that Chris mentioned, Ben is our cameraman, and he has been doing a little bit of reenactment with us as well. So yeah, that was a big shock to ourselves, to myself and yourself. We couldn't believe it, and clearly defined toes. You could see everything in it. You know, you could see toe prints,
Mm,
and it was absolutely bitter cold up there. The wind was howling across the top of the that
mm,
mountain peak, and we didn't want to hang around too long. We were well wrapped up, so it was really really cold. But as you said, the snow had receded all the way down to about. There was just that little piece, say the 100 meters maybe on top of the mountain top that was covered in snow still,
yeah,
and that's where we found it. It was amazing.
yeah. But I suppose you were asking me about before that, Jim. What sort of a visual? Like, what do you
Yeah,
ever had? You know, that I can. I've only ever had two. Well, the first instance was involved at least three, Bigfoots. I've had little glimpses and stuff which you sort of catch at the side of your eye on quite a few occasions, but you don't, you just write those things off, obviously,
yeah,
But I think about 2 months after that incident in the Cooney Mountains, I was out by myself in an area just below Loch Ness, which is known here in Ireland to be highly, highly active. And well, I'm actually telling you a lie. I'm not telling you a lie. I'm getting muddled up. Before that, Jim, in January 2019, I was on a live feed actually out in the area below Loch Ness, and there was quite a few people online watching that night. And I had heard a knock behind me, and I looked in front of me and I seen two pair of eyes, again glowing by themselves, looking directly at me. And one was about 8 feet off the ground, and the other was probably about 4 to 5 feet off the ground. And obviously a mother and a juvenile. Um, just seen the eyes, that was it, and heard the knock behind me, and we had the camera directed on them, and I think one of the eye glows was actually captured on the camera faintly. But just as we were busy looking at these, I looked at the side of my eye, and there's a road that bypasses the woods there, well, it cuts in between the woods. And I seen there was a car. There was a car come up the road. I heard a car coming up the road. Um, I've often noticed this before. If things like that were a car or a train or whatever, that the Bigfoots would actually use that to make their move. So, they would use the noise of the car or whatever to cover their movement, to move so they can move quick. And this
yeah,
car came up the road, probably breaking the speed limit, definitely breaking the speed limit. If I'd had the camera on him, dash cam on him, he'd have been reported to the police because he was doing a ridiculous speed up that road. But the next thing behind that ice, and the side of my eye, seen something at least 10 feet off the ground, another pair of eyes running up the road after the car. And it actually obviously came back round and cut back into the woods to get round to these other two which were looking at us. And I think that it was, my personal opinion, it was a mother and a juvenile, and the knocking going on behind me was the male, and
mm,
he was trying to get my attention by knocking and stuff like that, so to protect them too.
yeah,
And he obviously seen that wasn't working. That this guy, he must be a Bigfoot researcher. He isn't going to pay attention to me. You know what I mean?
mm,
So he decided to change his plan, and he ran up the road, gave me a small glimpse, and then he ran round to them. He obviously came right round, made a beeline right round to these two, That's what I believe, he was doing. And obviously, as soon as he'd done that, both of them disappeared then.
Mm. Can you describe, Chris, what you seen? Did you actually see him run across the road?
Running up the road behind the car.
Yeah.
I couldn't make anything out because it was pitch black dark. I just seen a pair of eyes,
Yeah.
basically, and like a flash of a black shadow. Didn't see
What
any.
height would you say? What height would you say it was?
At least 9 to 10 feet tall off the ground. The eyes were 9 to 10 feet tall off the ground.
Wow.
So that's what I say. I think that was mother and child.
Yeah.
Looking at me, and that was the male getting round to get them to safety.
Yeah.
But I suppose that was January 2019. That was about a month before we found the prints. But even at that point, I still wasn't convinced. I thought maybe it could have been a deer or anything running up the road. You know what I mean? It's just you try to pass these things off because I didn't see any features. But April 2019, about mid-April, it was a really, really wet night. One of those really wet days. It was one of those days where the rain just didn't stop all day, and it eventually stopped about 8:30 p.m. Now in April, it gets dark about 9:30, and I started flying the drone around. I actually took there's a big trail route right around that area, and I covered the whole lot. I set the drone up, flew it for 10-15 minutes, took it down, put the new battery on, done the same again. And I went through, I have 6 batteries from the drone, and I actually went through all 6 of those batteries right round to, I suppose, 2.5 mile route. I'd stopped, it was about 2.5 miles, and I said I'll stop for a break. And I found a wee bit of raised ground, and I always carry a plastic bag in my pocket in case I want to sit down somewhere. And I took it out and sat down and took out a cigarette. And just as I'd done that, I looked over to my left, now about 300 meters, at least 300 meters away. So again, hard to make out any features, but I seen like 2 heads popping up and down behind a hedge, and I thought maybe it was just the wind blowing. That's the first thing goes through your head, and then I realised there was no wind.
Yeah.
Right. And these 2 heads kept popping up and down behind this hedge. So I just looked to the right of that, just as you do, your eyes glance along, and looked along to the right of that. And it's at the same distance from me now, about 300 meters, but probably about, I suppose, 10 to 15, 20 yards from these 2 behind the hedge. There was what you would class as your typical Bigfoot standing straight out, straight up.
Wow.
And it's funny again, this is only 3 months after that up the road incident. It was 2 behind the hedge and a male standing out. That was 3, so that was mother or child again. Was that the same 3? I don't know.
Yeah. Did you get a clear look at this one, Chris? Clearly.
Well, it was
how much of them was visible?
It was 300 meters away, Jim. So
good distance, yeah.
Good distance, but you could clearly see the outline of what you would class as a Bigfoot. But no, you can't. At that distance, you just can't make any features. And of course, by this stage, I'd used every battery on my drone, from a drone, and I couldn't send my drone over to get a shot. Yeah. But I said, right, okay, fair enough. I thought none of it again. I says it's probably a flipping tree or whatever. Looks like a hedge, looks like a Bigfoot. That's what was going through my head. So I headed on up the trail, and I happened to glance back. Again, this was quite a bit. It's probably at least another mile around from there, and glanced back on one of the trees there. I looked into the tree. There was something very big and black up a tree, and the first thing I thought of was a big cat or something like that. And I says, no, it's way too big for that. And then I realised, right, okay, whatever this is, it's watching me, and it was obviously the same male Bigfoot again. And I said, right, okay, it's time to get out of here, But I had promised to do a live feed that night, so I had to do that on the way out. So I've done that through the last half an hour walk out of the area, and I got round there, but it gets very bushy along the trail. And I was heading along there, and I'm right-handed, so my camera phone from the live feed was on my right hand. And I told the folks what had just happened on the live feed. And walking along these really big high bushes alongside the woods, and of course, as I say, my camera in my right hand. But I just happened to glance to my left because I thought I heard something moving. And this is probably about another mile again after the last sort of glimpse I got. And I looked to my left and I seen your typical conical head. No other, didn't see nothing else, just seen the head, the conical head going down behind the bush.
Wow. At what
And it was
distance, Chris? What
10 feet,
distance? 10
at
feet.
10 feet.
Wow. Okay.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
again, uh, I took it as at the side of the head, so it was walking alongside me.
Yeah.
It looked like the side of the head,
Mm.
but it was at least 10 feet off the ground, tall, and 10 feet from me.
Yeah.
The head was absolutely huge. The head was probably a foot to a foot and a half wide.
Yeah. Big,
Um,
all right. Definitely, and that would be what you call an underwear changing moment, as they say. You
yeah, well,
know?
the thing about it was, Jim, it was almost completely silent, complete stealth.
Yeah.
I thought I'd heard like a few wee branches cracking or whatever there before that, but that's all. That was it.
Yeah.
And this thing had got up from down from that tree, went through the woods, probably ran quicker than me or whatever it was through the woods, because the way that I went with the trail would be a shorter route than it would have had to take unless it crossed the bog. For it to be level with me, it would have had to cross the bog, right? In open ground in daylight, which would have been very, very stupid of it to do.
All right, Chris. Before we move on to other things, can you tell us one more sighting before we do that?
Well, it was actually probably my last sighting on my own. Um, there's been very little has happened. Sighting wise, to be honest, this year for myself. But August 2019, around that same trail again, on in my local area, there I'd heard a little bit of movement and stuff, and I'd thought it was birds or whatever moving about, jumping off trees and stuff. But it was, I suppose, it was getting almost getting dark. It was dusk, and I had a big torch with me, and I said, "Them batteries don't look so strong." So I took the batteries out. There was a big tree log sitting there, so I set the old batteries, on top of it until I got the new ones replaced. And as soon as I set the batteries in that big stump, I heard growling.
Yeah.
Uh, and this went on for like 90 seconds. And because of about a month before that, I actually seen a big cat about a month before that. And that's the first thing that entered my head, was because it wasn't that far. It was about 3 miles from where I seen the cat. And I says, "Oh my goodness, that flipping cat is here. And I have nowhere to go, nowhere to run, no firearms or protection with me whatsoever. If this is a big cat, I am screwed." But then I realised it wasn't a cat noise. It wasn't like you would hear a cat um, vocalizing or whatever. So then it went through my head: is it a wild hog? Because there has been wild hogs in that area over the years. And then I said to myself, well, it doesn't sound like a pig either. So I said, right, okay, no problem. And this went on, as I said, for 90 seconds. I quickly grabbed the old batteries, put them in my pocket, and headed round the back trail again. And I actually said, right, I'll go live. So I think Eileen Buxton, one of our members, I think she came on screen with me that night on the live feed, and we were heading around the back trail. And I actually mentioned what had just happened, and again, the right-handed. So if I'm turning left, or sorry, if I'm turning right onto the next trail, obviously my head's going to be on that before the camera. So I come up level with the next trail. Camera was out to my right hand side, obviously, and just as I came literally just around the bushes onto the trail, I seen something at least 10 foot tall and grey from head to toe walking across the trail as cool and as calmly and collectively as you like.
You had a clear view of it, Chris, yeah?
Clear view. Again, walking sort of off the side to me. I would say that's probably my clearest visual ever. But again, it was about, I suppose, about 100 yards down the trail.
Yeah.
Which means it had directly walked straight from where the ground happened on the previous trail. So it had walked straight through the woods. It didn't make any movements to get closer to me or nothing like that. It had just walked straight through the woods.
Yeah.
But I know that trail pretty well, and it was at least 10 foot tall. It was actually taller than some of the trees in the area.
Yeah.
And it just made a beeline straight through the woods, as cool and as calmly as you like. And I think some of the guys actually seen this, thought they may have caught a bit of a glimpse or something on the camera. But I couldn't see it. It played the live feedback, and I couldn't see anything, to be honest. But they said they did. But maybe that did show on the live stream, and maybe on the replay. I don't know what way that works. You know, was it taken out by somebody, or was did it not just connect with the Wi-Fi or the 4G correct? I don't know what happened, but so that was probably my clearest visual. And funny enough, there's a girl in that area who walks her German Shepherd pretty often in the same area. And about a week after that was a Wednesday evening that happened. And about a week after that, I met this lady. Whenever I was heading in, she was heading out. And I had said, because I actually been chatting about her before, about Bigfoot and stuff. And I had said, well, have you seen just carrying on as you do, bit of laugh. Have you seen Bigfoot yet? And this is sort of the question that I would ask her a lot,
Yeah.
Have you seen Bigfoot yet? And most times it was no, wise up, don't be so silly and all these sorts of things. But on this particular occasion, she says, well, actually, and I goes, right. So she says, well, actually, last Wednesday night, now let's keep in mind my encounter happened the previous Wednesday night. She says, last Wednesday night, Chris, I was riding that back trail with my German Shepherd, and we were heading southwest on the trail, and she got to a certain point, and it happened to be the certain point where I was standing, changing my batteries, and she said her dog just froze. Now, a German Shepherd, Jim, and this German Shepherd particularly is a pretty big German Shepherd.
Yeah.
It's pretty fierce looking, and I wouldn't be scared of any other wee animal, you know what I mean? And she says it froze completely solid. No noise coming from the dog. It didn't move. His eyes were just fixated on one spot of the woods.
Yeah.
And she says, right, come on, let's go. We gotta go, And the dog wouldn't budge. She said it was as if the legs of the dog was actually stuck to the ground.
Yeah.
The dog wouldn't move. But yet, as soon as she pulled the dog back the other way, the dog turned around and walked away.
Yeah.
The opposite direction. And I said, well, that's a bit strange. And I told her what happened. Wow. And she says, oh my goodness, So, that probably, that added to it for me, and that really confirmed it for me,
Yeah. Did with all these encounters, Chris, and the encounters you had and sightings you had, did you ever get any odors of any description?
Um, I've smelt a few odd odors, but not really in that area. A couple of other areas that I've researched in, I got that more so. One in particular area which I don't go to anymore. I just don't go. uh, it's sort of towards South Armagh,
Yeah,
and I just refuse to go there now because I got what you would call infrasound
yeah,
there. I felt like I was taking a heart attack. The sweat was running off me like a river, and I actually had to get the coat off, everything off, apart from my flipping t-shirt and my jeans. Everything came off because I was sweating that much. And I actually felt extremely unwell. And before that, there I had felt the feeling of being watched. I didn't see anything there. I felt the feeling of being watched, and I felt extreme fear for no reason whatsoever.
wow.
And then, boom! All of a sudden, heart was flying, sweat and stuff like that. And it was
Wow.
hard to explain. But before that happened, I'd actually got a smell of a real strong odor before that, which
Yeah.
I couldn't even describe the smell.
Mm. Mm. Amazing. So just moving on, Chris, to the as you and I know, there's part two of the documentary is nearly finished at this stage. But do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, Welcome with the Wild Man, obviously, well, it was first conceived in 2018, I think, wasn't it, Jim? We had
Yeah,
chatted,
yeah,
um, as a means of hopefully getting people to come forward, and eventually it has worked. It did take a while, but it has worked in the long run, and people have, not very many, you have to say now, but people have come forward. But
yeah,
at least, if we've got a handful of stories out of it, well, then that's that's a winner for us. That's exactly what it was designed to do. But um, I'm not sure if any of the listeners haven't if they've seen Walking with the Wild Man. There, it's on the first part of the first film is on Amazon Prime now. You can go check that out. It's available in the UK and the States. Unfortunately, other parts of the world it isn't available, and that is not our fault. It's Amazon who actually make the rules, so we have no say in that whatsoever. Unfortunately, if we had, we'd have it in as many places as possible. But uh, that's beyond our control. But if you haven't seen Walking with the Wild Man, you got to go see that first before you even get into the Woodbush, which is the second part. But Walking with the Wild Man was something that was made entirely by myself and Jim. Um, as Jim mentioned briefly earlier, Ben, our cameraman, didn't even come on until almost near the end. When the recreations were being filmed in August 2019, and then a couple of night investigations. But all the stuff that you see, all the daytime investigations in the film were all filmed entirely and made entirely by myself and Jim. And of course, Ben's a big part of the team now, and he's been there for the entirety of the Woodbush, which is Welcome with the Wild Man too. Ben has been there from day one on that, and he's going to be there until the end credits roll, I'm sure. So,
yeah,
I mean, there's still a little bit of filming to do. We actually were out filming on Monday past, and we thought that was it. But of course, technical problems do happen, unfortunately. I even cast our memories back, Jim, to the very first day of filming Walking with the Wild Man.
yeah.
The very first day we went out there, we were out filming all day, and I think about a minute and a half of that footage got into the final film.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Unfortunately, the weather went against us several times during this new one, so it was difficult at times, but we got through it. And looking forward to the folks seeing the final result.
Yes, well, the second part, which is called The Woodbush, it's going to be coming on Amazon, I think, on December 1st. So, obviously, the first film was a big learning curve for us. And as they say, you learn by your mistakes. So, that's exactly what we done. and we're still learning by our mistakes, Jim. But
Yeah.
I suppose that's the way it goes. But you will notice, guys, whenever it does come around to coming on Amazon, that you will see a big improvement on everything. Obviously, Walking with the Wild Man didn't make us a lot of money. It made about $3,000 in total, you know. But of course, that was enough for us to buy equipment and to put a wee bit of investment into other stuff to enhance the woodhouse. So the woodhouse, you're going to see everything that a Bigfoot researcher, some Bigfoot researchers actually dream of having, like thermal imaging cameras and all these sorts of things. So it's all there. We have it all this time for it. Um, Even how it's filmed and put together, the investment into new equipment and stuff. There was no expense spared in that, especially with audio and different things. And obviously, we wanted to improve too on recreations and stuff like that. So we actually did a bit of filming on Monday for the recreation. It's just a few short scenes that were to replace the rest of the recreations, which were filmed earlier in the year. Now, not in their entirety, but just the Bigfoot shots. Just I wasn't just quite happy at how they looked, some of them. So we wanted to make it a wee bit more true to life. We ordered reshoots for Monday night for to get those few scenes. But part two, Jim, as I'm sure you know, Jim, one of the special treats that I thought with part two, well, if we backtrack a little bit first, about halfway through filming the Woodhouse, we said, right, we got to go to Big Dog. Big Dog Forest is the infamous forest here in Ireland where all these trees are uprooted, upside down and stuff like that. Bigfoot's marking their territory and all that. And they said we got to go there. And the initial plans that we had was to go there and camp out. And Jim and I went off on a scouting trip, and I think we drove around, Jim, in circles for about 8 hours.
Yeah.
And we were okay at the start, but I think after about 6 hours, we started getting really annoyed because we both realised that we were getting absolutely nowhere. That there was not one area that we seen where you could safely pitch a tent because the ground coverage was terrible. It's literally lump everywhere. There is no flat ground whatsoever. We would literally had they brought a digger in and dug out our own camping area, you know. So that was just beyond the joke. And I think Jim, you had called a second scouting trip a couple of weeks after that, and then Ron Madden,
Yeah.
who actually joins us in the Woodhouse, who's a new member of the team, came along with us. And I think we had an initial idea, listen, you know, before this here, if this doesn't work out, if this second trip doesn't work out, we're going to go with option B. And the second trip actually ended up being, listen, we're not going to waste our time looking around for campsites. We're going to go looking for where the Bigfoots are. So that was the plan this time around. And we done a little bit of filming that day. And even on the first scouting trip, Jim and I done a little bit of filming and covered a photograph on Google, which was found on Big Dog. Just a few short scenes were filmed each day. But the second scouting trip, Jim, as you know, was mainly to actually find where the Bigfoots are, so that whenever we do go with all the equipment, with all the full equipment, that we're going to be going directly to the right spot. So we're not going to be wasting time.
Yeah.
And of course, Jim was president, was waiting to become president of the Ibro at this stage. My term finished on the 30th of July. And the final main expedition shoot for the Woodhouse was ordered by myself, one of my last acts as president, on the 27th of July to the 30th of July. And we decided on a new mode of transport, and that was a boat. So the whole area a big dog has got Loch Earn in the middle. So with the boat, we could be anywhere we wanted, you know. And all
Yeah.
those islands on Loch Earn and stuff are all forested too, Jim, as you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're not going to have time to go into all that tonight. Maybe whenever Ron Madden comes on to do his show, he can maybe elaborate more on that. But basically, we had scouted out the area on the second scouting trip to actually find out where the Bigfoots are, because we knew we were wasting our time looking for a campsite. So we went and scouted it out where the Bigfoots are. And I'm not going to go into details, but boy, did that pay off.
Yeah. Yeah. It's exciting. Can't wait for the folks to see it now themselves. But yeah, to say the hair was standing on my back of the neck is an understatement, indeed. But yeah, indeed.
Well, of course, now, Jim, before we wrap up, I suppose I'm going to just put a couple of, I know we chatted about this before, but just a couple of quick pointers towards yourself, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Now that you're the president, actually, the last day of filming in the Big Dog area was actually my last day as president, and Jim literally took over more or less as soon as he got into the yard after filming. Jim was the boss then, you know. But there has been chat, Jim, obviously about a part 3, Walking with the Wild Man part 3, and
Yeah.
obviously that ball is in your court now. So I know we're all looking forward to the Woodbush, but have you any ideas, even for the folks who love the films, when that will even be expected to start shooting or whatever?
Yeah, I'm planning to get all this organized for probably start filming in March of next year. We'll get up and we, as I had in conversation with you guys, definitely a place of interest is back to Loch Earn for a longer period of time this time. There's so much. We only got to investigate not even 5% of the place. So it's definitely a return back to Loch Earn for, I think, is going to be a substantial slice of the new documentary.
Mm.
We also have a couple of stories, news stories from south of the border down where I am, which initially came from people that came forward and told us stories. So we have 2 or 3 those in the pipeline as well to investigate and sort out. So yeah, we're looking forward to that. And of course, a big part of this new upcoming documentary is our new member of the team who does all the narration. And I'll let you talk about Brent Thomas from the Paranormal Portal, Chris.
Yeah, well, Brent obviously was a first choice for me for it, because we've known Brent now for quite some time on Facebook, chatting back and forth, and done a couple of shows with him as well on Walking with the Wild Man at the time. And it just happened, I think, when the trailer, we made a new trailer for Walking with the Wild Man at the start of the year. And I actually asked Brent to do it, and he done an amazing job of that. So I mean, it was there was no question in my mind of who was going to be picked to narrate the Woodbush. And I have to say now, Brent is probably almost halfway through the narration, and he's done an amazing job of it. He really does get to the point, and I think he's probably near completion now. I was actually speaking to him briefly yesterday, and he's probably near completion on his end, but that doesn't mean it's over. Obviously, it has to come across here, it has to be put on the film and all that. But I think he's quite nearing completion now, and I think maybe by the end of this month, hopefully we should have a full trailer. At the minute, the teaser is on our YouTube channel, the IBRO's YouTube channel. It's the Irish Bigfoot Research Organisation on YouTube. You'll probably find it on our Facebook page as well, our public page. You can also follow us there as well, guys. And if you're in any of our groups, we have Bigfoot Britain and Ireland Facebook group. You'll find the teaser for the Woodbush there as well. and the Bigfoot Walking with the Wildman fans, which is a brand new group only created a couple of weeks ago. You'll find all the information on the Walking with the Wildman and the Woodbush in there. That's all it's about. Bigfoot Britain and Ireland is about Bigfoot globally. But if you're really into Bigfoot Walking with the Wildman and the Woodbush and you want to find out a lot more about it a lot quicker, well then join our new group. That's Bigfoot Walking with the Wildman fans. As I say, it's a brand new group on Facebook, and you'll get all the info you need there, all the updates. And of course, you can keep an eye on our YouTube channel as well, and there'll be updates on it. There'll be constant updates on our Facebook page, the Irish Bigfoot Research Organisation. I think we've got about 2,500 followers there. Constant updates there. And I think, Jim, actually, I know we're up on our time here, but I think there's actually maybe an exclusive behind the scenes short documentary maybe coming November time, is it, or something? Or
That's correct. Yeah, there will be a little behind the scenes footage, special edition for the folks there. It'll be on the fans page, so a little inside information of what's happening, and it will be on location as well. So yeah, the guys can look out for that one.
We get a bit of a glimpse behind the scenes of that one then.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's it. So anyway, Chris, that's it. I think we've talked to the folks long enough. I think for part 4 of Talk Bigfoot. But as I said from the beginning, it's a pleasure, and always a pleasure working with you. And I look forward to our new endeavours coming next year. But we still have to finish off this one. So yeah, best of luck, as I say, with all the editing process, and we all look forward to. Especially myself, looking forward to Brent Thomas when he finishes his narration on it. It's going to be a blast. Going to be a blast is all I can say, folks. So with that, Chris, thank you very, very, very much indeed for joining us tonight on Talk Bigfoot, and for the folks out there, thank you all for dropping in and listening. Part 5 shall be coming up maybe in a week or two, and we look forward to that. But for now, Chris, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Jim. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Take care. That's it, folks. We'll take it from there. Goodbye. Talk to you again soon.
Good night.